Hello lovely people, my name's Nicole and it is the end of the BookTubeAthon. The week of crazy reading and booktubing is over and now we go back to our regularly scheduled, unscheduled videos. So my first instinct is to say that I didn't read as much as I wanted to this week, which isn't actually true. Going into the week I was like, let's see if I can read these 7 books. We'll see. And I did. I got through 7 books pretty fast, but I think the reason I want to say I didn't read as much as I wanted is because in the second half of the week I didn't read as much as I wanted. I read way more than expected in the first few days and then I got sick and then I just pretty much just wanted to sleep the entire time and not talk to anyone and I didn't want to concentrate on a book for very long. So I didn't read as much, but because I read so much during the first half of the week, that was okay and I was perfectly fine with that. So I read a really good amount. I managed to complete all the challenges. I'm really happy with how well I did. So yeah, let's just get into the books. So the first book I read was True Letters from Fictional Life by Kenneth Logan. And this one I read starting at midnight on Monday, read until 3 a.m. When I finished it. So this fulfilled my book read entirely after dark, and then also my book with yellow on the cover. I really liked this book. It was a great sort of high school queer story, lots of great different characters. I did get a little frustrated with a couple of the characters at times, and it didn't feel like there was anything particularly unusual. One of the plot twists, I guess, I kind of called from the second the book started. I'm like, oh, that's a thing that's gonna happen, and then it did, and I was just kind of disappointed with the characters. But the relationship in it was cute, and there were some really good friendships, and just good representation of queer youth in America. So I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Summer of Supernovas by Darcy Woods, and I read this Monday morning, and I thought this was really cute. You know, it's just kind of a solid YA contemporary. I think my main issues with it were, first of all, love triangle. Because one of the main issues that is preventing the two love interests from getting together is the fact that she's dating his little brother. And the problem is that his little brother is actually pretty sweet, and I mean he's not a saint, but he's, you know, he's a good guy and he cares about her. And I just hate it when, you know, you're going into a book and you just know someone's gonna have to get hurt in order for this main couple to get together, and that sucks and I hate that. And then my other thing was that I got a little frustrated with the main character at times because she holds on so tightly to this astrology thing, and I get why she holds on to it, and in her position I probably would too. But because I'm reading from an outsider perspective, it was still a little frustrating. But like I said, this is a really cute, summery, contemporary romance. The love interest is a total dreamboat, and the main character's best friend is amazing. I want to be her best friend. So I gave this 3.5 stars. And this was my book I found out about through BookTube. Then I read The Merciless 2, The Exorcism of Sofia Flores by Daniel Vega, and I need to stop reading Danielle Vega's books because it's not that she's a bad writer, it's just that they're just so much. It's so much. The first half is just a lot of catty teenage bullshit, and then the second half is basically just torture porn, and I'm like, I don't need this in my life. I'm really okay without it. I don't think I actually like the horror genre that much. It basically felt pretty much exactly the same vibe as the previous book. I mean, if you like sort of really gory horror, you might like it, but it just was very much not for me. The one thing that sort of kept me going in this book was the fact that it takes place at a very, very conservative Catholic boarding school. And when I'm reading or watching things like that, where people are in very, very conservative environments, I sort of just keep reading out of spite. I don't know why. It doesn't actually do anything, but, you know, it helped me get through the book, which is sort of what's most important here. So I gave this 2 stars. Then jumping from something not so great to something absolutely amazing, I read Every Day by David Levithan, and David Levithan is amazing. I Love David Levithan. This was my read a book by a favorite author, and it reminded me why David Levithan is one of my favorite authors. He's so great, and everything he writes is so great, and I love him. And I loved that this dealt with relatable human concepts and emotions, and it dealt with them through a really unusual, sort of supernatural medium, using this character of A, who is not normal. They are pansexual and gender fluid because they keep waking up in different people's bodies. So like they don't have control over their gender ever, so they've never really associated themselves with one gender. And they're, you know, constantly meeting new people, never getting to build solid relationships with anyone, while then also dealing with the emotions of first teen love and all the drama and confusion that brings. Just everything about this was wonderful, and I love David Levithan so much. 5 stars forever and ever and ever. Then I read Deadpool Classic Volume 2, and this was my book-to-movie adaptation, so I also rewatched the movie. And this is just a collection of some classic Deadpool stories. They were perfectly enjoyable. They were funny. I mean, it's Deadpool, so they were funny and sort of a little bit wacky, and I mean, they were fun. I don't really have anything negative to say about them, but nothing really stood out to me, so I gave them 4 stars. Then I read The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and I don't know what to say about this book. It's a weird book. Plot-wise, it's really interesting and complex. The writing is really beautiful. The characters are all interesting and unusual in an intriguing way, but the writing is in this really sort of dry, emotionally detached style, so that I didn't feel like I got to know the characters as much as I like to. I didn't feel like I got to connect to them or connect to their story as much as I want to. I just didn't really emotionally connect to this book, and I like to emotionally connect to my books. I'm not a big fan of reading emotionally removed books, so I'm kind of conflicted about this. I mean, I do think it's a really good book, and I think it's wonderfully written. It's not the sort of thing that I typically like. It's not this writing style that I typically like. I gave it 3 stars. I think I liked it. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it did, however, fulfill my book that is older than me. Then I read Learning to Swear in America by Katie Kennedy, and this was wonderful. If you have not picked this up, go to your local bookstore, pick it up. It's so much fun. It is this adorable teenage genius who's super socially awkward, and he is thrown into this sort of bullpen of adult geniuses and told, hey, help us save the world. But when he's like, hey, I have this thing that could help us save the world, their response is, nah, you're just a kid. Your research probably isn't right. You know, I know you've been writing, like, papers and dissertations on this for years, and this is what you do. But, like, we're not gonna listen to you on this. And then while he's dealing with that, he's also learning from these 2 hilarious friends that he makes, who were raised by these total hippie parents, and so they're super chill and just wonderful creative souls. And so it's this contrast of this super genius who's insanely into like physics and space and dark matter and all that jazz, and then this like kind of adorably dorky like teenage girl who's like, hey, wanna go to prom? And it's wonderful and it's hilarious and it's such a joy, and everyone should read it. I gave it 4.5 stars. And this was book number 7, so this helped me officially finish all the BookTubeAthon challenges. Then I read Miss Bixby's Last Day by John David Anderson, and this is a middle grade, and it's one of those middle grades that sort of just makes you a little bit nostalgic for like those, you know, those really good teachers. Maybe you had one of them when you were younger, maybe you had one of them in high school or in junior high, but the ones that just make you excited to like get to school and start learning. The ones who don't try to be like cool with the students, but are so cool. And I just love seeing this perfect example of how much a really good teacher can affect kids' lives and how you know, when you have someone like that influencing young people, it has this huge effect on them, and it you know, it inspires them to go out and do things that they never would have believed that they could before. And it was great and wonderful, and I gave it 4 stars. Then the last book I read for the BookTubeAthon was The Great American Whatever by Tim Federle, and I'm conflicted on this book. The blurb on the front says a Holden Caulfield for a new generation, and I feel like that's exactly what my problem with it was. That was definitely meant to be a compliment, but I hated Catcher in the Rye. And I feel like my issue with this book was that it felt too much like Catcher in the Rye. It had that same sort of dry, pessimistic, a little snarky kind of tone, and lots of what I felt was kind of trying too hard to be philosophical. I did like this protagonist much more than I liked Holden Caulfield, which is not difficult because he is one of my all-time least favorite book characters. But I thought that this main character had his really good funny moments, and the philosophical points that he made were good, even if they felt a little heavy-handed. I genuinely think that this book did a lot of things right. It had a fantastic, diverse cast of characters. It dealt with LGBT relationships. It talked about the process of mourning someone close to you, and I think it handled that really, really, really well. And I also really liked the element of screenwriting that was in here and how much of a cinema nerd the main character was. I'm conflicted on how I feel about some of the relationships in this book, both platonic and romantic. There were probably 12 different scenes where I was basically shouting at the main character, "Dump him!" because I hated his love interest. Like, I'm sure he was gorgeous, because he's described as being gorgeous, and like, I fully trust that Amir is a beautiful, beautiful person, but he's kind of a dick. And the main character kept noticing him doing assholey things and being like, wow, that's kind of a dick thing to say, and then he's just like, oh well, he's cute though. And I'm like, don't do that, you can do better. And like, his friends were kind of assholes to him a lot of the time. I know that they meant well, but still, I don't know how I feel, and I'm conflicted. And so it's one of those books that I personally had a lot of issues with it, but I think that it's a really important book to exist, and I think that it's a really, really good book to exist. And I think, like Catcher in the Rye, a lot of people will get so much out of this book, and it could be so important to so many people's lives. It just wasn't for me. So I gave it 3 stars. So those are all the books I read for the BookTubeAthon 2016. I had a pretty good week. I read 9 books. So, I mean, I consider that to be a successful BookTubeAthon. Let me know how you did in the comments. I cannot wait for next year or for the Christmas BookTubeAthon. But yeah, I hope you guys had a great BookTubeAthon as well. I love you, and I will see you later. Bye!